Greetings, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Barbara Dean Franklin Show. I am your host, Barbara Dean Franklin, and today I have the awesome pleasure of sitting with my girlfriend, LaDonna Combs. Hey, LaDonna, how are you? It is a pleasure to have you come here, sit with me. We're going to talk about a very important subject, which is domestic violence. I'm hoping you're going to share some information about prevention, give some little tidbits to people who can, that it will help them. But before we start talking about domestic violence, tell us a little bit about LaDonna and all that you do, the different organizations that you're involved in, and how you help people who have an issue with domestic violence.
Okay, and thank you for that. And thank you for having me on. I'm so excited about being here and talking about a movement.
Right.
Domestic violence is really a movement.
Exactly.
I'm the co-director of the Sisters Against Abuse Society, and I co-direct that with Otis Combs, who is my brother. And we do faith-based concepts for domestic violence prevention. And with our organization, we do legal advocacy, domestic and sexual assault advocacy, safety planning. We do counseling for healing.
Okay.
And we do awareness, and we do community prevention, education, and we partner with some great people in Wayne County. Wayne County roughly has about 1,850,000 people. Okay. And in that, 52% of those are females. And African American are a big demographic also in Wayne County.
All right.
And so we have an opportunity to partner with several resource providers, but we're coming to find that we have a population that we have to focus on culturally specific services for African American women.
Okay.
And in doing that, we partner with SAAS partners with SAFE, Kaylin Risker, Sisters Acquiring Financial Empowerment. We partner with Crystal Weaver, which is the director of Lost and Found Christians. And Dominion Family Services, Father Michael Orr, wonderful man who also helped, who is a co-founder with him, Shirley Williams, on the Wings of Love. And we partner with her. And we also have an opportunity to sit on a really good think tank here in Detroit called Transformation Detroit, who is the chair of that is Umi Hankins, who is also the co-director of the Institute for Domestic Violence in the African American Community. Okay. So, and right now we're working on several projects with them, with actually more than 10 cities around the country, around the United States, and with Dr. Oliver Williams. And we're working on the African American Domestic Peace Project. And we had an opportunity to spend some time in Chicago a couple of weeks ago and met some great people there. They brought some great doctors, PhDs, survivors, other resource providers.
Now, on Monday, there was an event with Detroit Lions and the men against domestic. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, we're starting to partner with more men, and men really do want to be involved. And one thing about men, you have to engage them a different way when it comes to things like this, because a man is not coming to the table if he thinks he's on the menu.
Exactly.
So we had to change a little dialogue and understand that, especially in our faith, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Men are a very valuable commodity in the African American community, a scarcity. So when we had an opportunity to partner, or not partner, but be a part of Kalima Johnson, who's the director of SAAS Services, and put on a program, Men Can Stop Intimate Partner Violence. And we had an opportunity to work with Galen Duncan, who is the director of development for the Detroit Lions. And also he brought with him Nate Burleson, who's a wide receiver. And a host of other guys too, but it was very fortunate to get those type of men and see them speak through a different gender lens about domestic violence and about aggression and about power and control and about how a woman is supposed to be treated and about it's one thing to do a job and their job, which is a really aggressive, hyper masculine job, and come home and talk about domestic violence and how it's not tolerated.
It shouldn't be. Now, talk a little bit about domestic violence, because I think we think that, domestic violence is always physical, but it's also, there are some mental parts to it too. So when you talk about domestic violence, is there a definition that you have when you speak of domestic violence?
Right. Well, domestic violence is emotional and psychological and physical and sexual. And the one part of domestic violence that is not prosecutable, which is the emotional abuse, which always precedes the physical abuse. And what it is when another person who's in a position of power and control exercises a certain amount of coercion, manipulation, oppression on another individual with an intended outcome. There's an outcome to it. Some people think it's very dysfunctional, and it is dysfunction in the form of that is not a healthy relationship, but it's very functional for the batterer because he's trying to achieve an outcome, and it works.
And it works. Yeah.
So, and that's what it is. And emotional abuse ranges from anything from economic abuse, isolation, keeping you from your good family. Support system, you know, intimidation, just different things about you.
You know, it's really funny that you would say that, because women who have children, their children suffer from that same thing, because if you don't have the emotional support of your family, and then it trickles down to your kids because all they have is you, then they grow up to be young adults, and then you say they need to get out or do whatever, they have nowhere to go because you've already isolated them from family. The family doesn't help you, doesn't have a relationship with you. They never built a relationship with the children, you know. So now here it is, this child is still affected by the domestic violence that has been, you know, perpetrated on, you know, the mother. So it's just really sad that we repeat that vicious cycle.
It is a cycle, and also when a woman is in a domestic violence relationship, it does affect her ability to parent. She's not present. She might be present physically, but she's busy surviving the emotional and physical abuse. So she's not present to parent. So the kids have a whole lot of things that they're missing, and many times they have frustration and anger. They can't take it out on him or who the batterer, so they go to school. And it becomes a form of bullying. It becomes a form of bedwetting, a form even of grades lowering, and just, you know, the kid isn't present either for worrying about what they have to endure going back home.
Now, you know, you brought something just then, just saying that, you know, opened my eyes to a lot of things, because I never thought about that parent not being present. You know, you always think it's just a lack of parenting skill. You know, what is it that you don't see? But that kind of is very eye-opening for me. So, you know, I thank you for saying that, because I'm trying to help a young lady. And I've watched her, you know, watch her parents. And so when I look at that, you know, sometimes we take a stance, well, her mother should be a mother, you know, even though she's in that situation, she should see what her child's need is. But if she's so busy trying to cope in that relationship, you know, she will miss out on some of that stuff. So thank you. So you brought some information and stuff that you can share with the audience, because I know there's some young girl, some young guy, because, you know, women are abusers too. You know, it's just not that, you know, men abuse.
Yeah, and this is something very important to remember. You got 1 out of 4 women will be the victim of domestic violence in their lifetime. Okay, and then you have 1 out of 10 men who will be the victims as well. And then what you have when it comes to male, 33% of the male population will be victims of domestic violence. What you need to understand about that is that more than half of that 33% are going to be victims in same-sex relationships. Okay. So, and then the other percentage of men that are left that are domestic violence victims, even when the female is the aggressor and starts the fight, she's still 7 to 10 times more likely to be permanently injured or end up in ER. So that's something that people need to take in consideration about that when it comes to domestic violence. It's a gender-based crime, not gender-specific. But the woman, because of the numbers and because as of 2008, the Center for Disease Control has reported that it's a $5.8 billion issue in lost productivity at work, mental health issue with women and children, and with physical abuse. So that's something for the audience also to remember. And also what I want people to know is that with all the service providers that are available, wonderful service providers here in Michigan, there is still a demographic. The African American woman still suffers at a different rate than her Caucasian sister does. African American women are 35% more likely to be in domestic violence relationships, and 2.5% more than men and other minorities. So we have to remember that. And that even in our communities, well, they said, well, why doesn't she get out? Why doesn't she leave? Why doesn't she get out? The thing about that is the question we have to ask ourselves is not why doesn't she leave? The question is why is she in such danger in a home where a person has said, I'm going to protect you and love you. Right. And it's also not simple. We also have to understand statistically a woman suffers lethality at a percentage of 75% more after she's left. Most women that are killed, they're killed leaving or after they've left the relationship. So because then she's putting a damper on the power and control. So she needs a safety plan to leave.
Right. Well, my daughter was a victim of, domestic violence in a relationship, kidnapped, beaten by a boyfriend. As a matter of fact, I told her, I won't share your pictures on the air, but I will share them, with LaDonna. The guy
Beautiful girl.
She said, Mom, she needs to see the after picture, but then my godson.
I see the stress in her spirit, and I see that.
Right. But 10 years he, spent in jail, then came out, in June, and started to call my house, and I could not believe it. What are they thinking? You spent 10 years, she's had enough abuse in her life, and 10 years she's been away from you. Why do you think, that she wants to call you? So what is it? I know you can't tell me what goes on in a person's life, but what is it that, they won't let go?
Well, and then there's a lot of other factors that have, if they have a child in common, that's another thing. Yeah. And it's a cycle. Number one, most batterers don't believe they're battering. This is the way we fight. This is the way we argue. And if you look at it, like I said, that's the reason African Americans are so different in a historical context from slavery till now. A lot of things we've kept secret. What goes on in this house stays in this house. And that's a cultural thing from slavery, because you had the house Negro and you had the field Negro. And there was a contention there because they had to keep it secret what went on in the house, any complaining or any molestation and everything that was done from the master. So, but it resonates also in our communities that, they don't really discuss or dialogue or take ownership for their behavior. So they see that as normal, and depending on what he was raised in as a child, if that's what he saw, and as many times as they say, I'm never going to do that to my mom, I'm never going to do that to I'm going to grow up, but it becomes a value because it's been modeled that way and they haven't had anything else modeled. So it becomes a value more than just a demographic of what they've watched.
So what you guys are doing is, I know that a lot of your services are reactive, but do you have proactive services too that will help them learn?
We do. Awareness is one thing, and we're partnering also with Antoinette Bostic, who's over working at the safety station at Osborne High School and some of these other demographics where we're doing more primary prevention before you get to the secondary, the tertiary prevention, where you have to have housing and you have to have for women who are involuntarily displaced by violence. And so, we try to do things, make people aware to understand what domestic violence really is. And even faith-based women, because herein lies another demographic who've been indoctrinated to be submissive and silent, and what Marie Fortune penned is the holy hush in the church. And so we try to bring awareness and partnering with more men, because women alone cannot stop domestic violence. You have to have healthy men. And the good thing about our society as a whole is that 2/3 of men are very healthy. They love their daughters, their nieces, their grandmothers, their sisters, their mothers. But the third that is doing the battering is so prolific, at a rate of 98%. It's like a blight, like urban blight. So that's what you see. So we really are going to have to partner with more pastors, bishops, parishioners, ministers, and partner with more men. And men are stepping up. We're having more men do a lot.
That's good. And so, like with Antoinette and the school, at Osborne, are they addressing our young men? Because the young men, they see what the older men do, and then they just mirror that. So are we, in that program that they're doing, are we trying to get them while they're young, showing them how to be better people. Okay, so share some of the information that you brought, and plus, like there's so much free legal, material that they can have, documentation. I don't think a lot of people are aware of. So as you go through your information,
well,
you can share
there are
that.
a lot of websites. Love is respect.org,
okay, and
IDVAC. I would recommend, if you really want some good information, to go to IDVAC, and that is IDVAAC.org,
okay,
and that's the Institute for Domestic Violence in the African American Community. And on there's a lot of information, a lot of statistics. There are a lot of things that you can do, to help partner with other people and to help a friend. If you know somebody that's in a domestic violence relationship, and they haven't left yet and they're calling, and you say, you know what, I don't want to talk to this person anymore. Right. It's the same old thing. Right. She's going to come over here. She's got a black eye. I'm going to nurse her back. Then she's going to go back. Right. He's going to sweet talk her. She's going to go back. And it's important for people to know that victims of domestic violence go back 7 times an average before they actually leave. Okay. And so don't, isolate them, because you not helping them further isolates them. Okay. And you further help, you're actually a passive participant in the abuse. Okay. And so that's very important for you not to kind of throw a person away, but be a good listener. Not be a good judge. What we do in our support groups, the SAAS has a support group every Sunday. Okay. And we meet from 1 to, we try to meet from 1 to 2:30, but it gets so good in there, so we're there for lunch. Right. You have to bring a lunch because, we have a lot of women in there. It's a safe place for women. We create a safe place for women to self-disclose things that they would never self-disclose. We've had women come in our safe place, women from 18 and women up to 65 come in and say, we didn't talk about this. That's a different generation. They didn't talk about what went on. They didn't talk about, they weren't raised to talk about that. Our mothers and grandmothers, they kept it quiet. But now we have women that come to our support group on Sundays, and it's at Greater Grace Temple Church at 23500 West 7 Mile Road, where the pastors, Bishop Charles H. Ellis III and First Lady Chrisette Ellis, and 2 wonderful people that are emboldened and impassioned and moved for empowerment for women, not empowerment for oppression, but empowerment for destiny and purpose and healing. And that's exactly what our support group does. We've had so many women go on in our support group to start their own businesses, reestablish themselves, leave very violent relationships. We've had women that have been trafficked from Haiti. Women that have been violently sexual assaulted, women that were in same-sex relationships and now are deciding, you know what, God has something better for me, that were victims of multiple molestations. So that's something else.
And during the your SAAS meeting, so some of these women who you have helped are coming back to help other women.
Yes,
that's great.
They are coming back. Good. And Antoinette is one of them who is wonderful, doing wonderful work at Osborne. And we have some really great room. It's a safe place for you to disclose. And we laugh. They cry, but we laugh. And just things you never thought. Once you come in, you're this broken person that we're nurturing. But once you go through our program, you're this hysterically funny comedian that is ready to tell and help and empower somebody else.
That's good. And that's exactly, what we need is a coming together of women who have gone through some things, sharing their testimony, loving on people who are not there yet, helping them become aware of who they are, and knowing that the help comes from within, because we oftentimes don't feel good enough, we feel like we deserve, whatever it is that we're going through, and then we just need to value ourselves. That's what we have to do.
We do. It is a self-awareness. And we also have to understand when you're doing this work that there are some women that are never going to leave their abuser. And what your job is not to tell her, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. Well, I can't give you this resource without that, because then that takes the power and control from him, and then now you have it. Right. So now she has to jump hoops for you, and she's surviving you now. Right. What we have to do is tell her, what can I do to make you safe where you are? As long as you need, until you decide. If you never decide, but my job is to keep you safe, and to keep you whole and to keep you healthy as you yourself are surviving and managing this.
I think I heard you say that you have the SAAS meeting on Sundays. You try to hold it 1.5 hours, but you go over because it's so good.
It is.
Okay, it's like chicken. It's real
right,
good.
It's real good.
But if they wanted to contact you, if they wanted to contact SAAS, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, they can contact me through my email address, which and I respond every day. I'm on it all the time.
Good.
Every day
Good.
I'm on there, and that's preventionsister22@yahoo.com, or you can call Greater Grace Temple at 313-543-6000 and leave a message, and I check my messages every day. And then if someone calls and they're very compassionate, they'll call me, or they'll call my office, or one of my volunteers, and we'll get right back with you. And that's usually how people intertwine with us. Or you can just show up. Show up to the meeting. It's an open meeting to the community. You don't have to be a member of our church. You don't have to be Pentecostal, Apostolic. You can be Muslim. You can be Buddhist. You can be whatever race you are. You can be male. You can be female. Come to our group. It's at 1:30 at Greater Grace Temple in room 200H. It is a closed session, so when you come in, it's a private session once we allow you in, and you don't have to, it's a very confidential meeting too. And they just love on you in there for a while. Good. They really do.
Love is the key to a lot of hurts that we go through in this world. And people would just grasp that and start loving on one another. Real love, not fake, not phony. Real love. That's what we need. And I thank God for you because, from the moment that we met, that's what I feel. The sisters that God has just put together in my path, you, Antoinette, Wendy, both of them, the other LaDonna, Miss Shirley.
Right.
You guys are awesome and you're great. And I'm just really looking forward to us doing great and wonderful things together. Coming up, so many kids are sexually abused. They go from that to be in relationships where they equate sex with love, and then they start to be abusers of themselves with drug addictions or different things like that. I'm telling you because I know, because this is where I come from. You understand? And as I was coming up, like you say, a lot of times you don't tell. I just thank God for him putting good people into my life that, would help me. But now we have so many resources because it's so prevalent now. Now everybody knows it's happening over and over again. We read, our children are dying, things are happening so much. So, I thank you for, being so passionate about what you're doing doing it so well and being pulled from here, but continuing to do all that you're doing. And you are doing a wonderful job, but I know you know that.
Well, thank you. To me, we only do as good as our last victim we're able to help, and we try not to fail anybody. We don't want to fail anyone. It's a ministry, as a licensed minister as well at Greater Grace. It's a ministry for me as a servant to empower women and to love women to their potential and to help them love their families and be in healthy relationships with men. And just get them to the next level because they're born with so many gifts. And domestic violence is like a curse that comes upon you that comes to destroy self-awareness and for you to lose yourself and your self-worth.
And so that's a good place right there, because what I want you to do is I want you to look into the camera over here, and I want you to speak, from your heart to some young girl, some young guy, somebody that's going through something, who's feeling like, they don't have a way out. They just are hopeless. Just speak some life to them right now.
Okay, well, thanks for that opportunity. Well, I want to speak to whatever man, woman, young person. Teen dating violence is another form of what's going on. But I want you to know that you were born with a purpose. You weren't born by mistake. You weren't an accident. It doesn't depend on whether you came through foster care or what happened or what system you ended up in and what your home life. You were born with a purpose, and the reason why these things are happening in your life and coming to destroy you is because the enemy is afraid of your potential and your power. You have got something down on the inside that he wants to destroy, that if you realize it and come up to him, it's going to be so life-changing and effective, not only within yourself, but within the world, within a community. Your fortune is tied up in it. Your success is tied up in it. Your healing is tied up in it. And that's the only reason these things are coming to afflict you. But think it not strange. You know, when you come into these these temptations come to oppress you and hurt you, because the Lord is there for you to deliver, and then you can show up in your own life. You can show up in your own life, and there are resources out there. There are people there to help you. You might feel alone, but that's the trick of the enemy too. You're not alone. Right. You're not alone.
Right. I thank you for that. I have a organization, and it's called Women in Power Crossing Path, and I had, got these T-shirts and to speak out against domestic violence. So what I'm going to do, all of my members have a T-shirt. I want to present you with an empowered T-shirt. Okay, and it fits so well too. I love it. Okay,
thank you.
Because we are empowered. You know,
yes.
And the reason I said Women Empowered Crossing Paths because when you cross the path of another woman and you lock arms with her, you know, it's like a cord in the twine. We can't be broken. There are things I may not do or be able to do on my own. I don't have the confidence, but you give me confidence to do that. You know, when we love on one another, when we try and help one another, encourage, uplift, inspire one another. So, 30 minutes is not a lot of time. So, it's, I'm going to have to end the show.
Okay.
But
this is great.
I'm going to have you back, because maybe I need a domestic violence spokesperson. So whenever we do a show, we can do. We'll work together. Sit down. We'll figure out some ways to brainstorm.
Would love
to get you a spot. Where we can come and talk about this more often.
Most certainly, it would be my pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you again for taking the time out your busy schedule.
Thank you
to
for
come here. I'm going to end my show as I always do each and every week. Thanking the people that look at the show. I'm hoping that I'm bringing you something that will be beneficial to you. I also want to personally thank each and every one of you who has sent me prayers in the loss of my mom. It was the greatest thing that I've ever been through in my life, but you guys keep me strong, and the love of the Lord is just surrounding and consuming me because there's no way that I would be able to do what I'm doing if God wasn't the head of my life. So again, I'll end the show as the way I do each and every week, telling you from my beating heart to your beating heart, I love you. You understand? Okay.